It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. Here we go again. I don't know which round this is, but someone wrote to me and said, "Is Scrum going to die in 2024? It's the death of Scrum." And I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go again, right? I feel like this comes up probably once a quarter, if not more, where people just start telling me, "Oh, Scrum's going to go away. What's going to replace it?" If you go all the way back to the very beginning, to 2001, when I first really heard about Agile software development and Scrum, it was just very, very early practitioners, the Jeff Sutherlands and Ken Schwabers of the world, that were experimenting with this new thing based on a document by Takuchi and Nanaka. And after a few years working in organizations that practice waterfall, you learn that Agile was something that, if adopted correctly, could spread like wildfire. It was going to be a big deal, and there were so many benefits, including the stand-ups, the use of sticky notes to break things down into small pieces, rapid releases. But today, Scrum seems to have deviated away from most of those original things. It feels like it's fallen apart a little bit, and that's where people are getting this from. So if you go back to the very basics, go back to the beginning of why it exploded and what happened, this may help us debunk or demystify what's actually going on. So the main reasons Agile really exploded in popularity was, one, it was something that appealed to technologists, and two, it was emotional. It gave us a good feeling about what we're working on and increased our way of feeling happiness at work. It gave us better work-life balance. So companies who were trying to build technical products finally had a way that they could get things to market faster. They had a way that they could switch over from what was once, you know, online CDs and DVDs that you used in a drive, DVD ROMs. You switched over to online deployment and continuous integration and continuous deployment. I mean, it's just so exciting to see how things changed over time in the cloud and now with AI. And, Agile certainly hasn't lost its footing. For many years, people were still in the what I call blockbuster video or Office Max type mentality, where they wanted to go to, if you needed photocopies, you went to a local office store. If you needed if you needed to rent a movie, you went and rented a VHS from Blockbuster. But people were stuck in either that's the way that they were used to doing things and they weren't ready for change, or they believed that change was inevitable, but they didn't know how to go about change. So companies adopting Agile were looking towards their knowledge and how shall I put this, the practical application of Agile to help them solve complex problems for their customers and to get things to market faster so they can increase the stability of their feedback loop. But the emotional reason was that, let's just cut to the chase. Waterfall and time-based estimation generally sucked. It took all the joy out of work. It made people so hooked to Gantt charts and to other processes that it forced us to think about delivery based output instead of the humanized outcome that we were seeking. So it pushed us in a direction where the industry started really trying to find anything they could, grasping at straws to find anything they could to legitimize Agile. And that was when we saw all kinds of things introduced. And that's when you saw the Agile landscape really increase. And the truth is, many of these things were there before. It's just they weren't incorporated as part of the Agile framework. So when you started deviating Agile away from just software development and started applying it to other things, then you started incorporating techniques like customer-centric design and design thinking you started modeling, Agile modeling. You started thinking about flow and personas, and lean practices came back into the mix. But there has been a large transition over the years. And I'll be the first to say that while there was a time not too many years ago, I'd say just before COVID, where everyone was drinking the Agile Kool-Aid, things were going really well, Jira was rocking and rolling, everybody was just moving along. the old school way of executing Agile has started to go by the wayside only because people aren't 100% confident in the way that they were applying it. So if you can think about how can I get back to basics, but still focus on the agile pieces that get us to where we need to be. Now, I know we talked about this earlier in the week, but I'm just going to mention it once more that I think when organizations really refocus on outcome and stop focusing on output, and when they get to the point where they really understand what they're trying to do and how their tool, product, or service, or idea, whatever it is going to make a difference, and they start really breaking work down into ideation or initiation and then discovery to get to the MVP, and then the actual delivery or build out, and then finally focusing on release, and you break everything down in those 4 phases, it gives you the flow that's going to work. Does it mean that we need to go back all the way to sticky notes to make this work? Well, no, you can if you want to, but it's one of these things where what I'm trying to say is Scrum's not dead. Scrum is the foundational hub of everything. Whether you spin off of Scrum and say we're going to apply a stable framework because we want to have a greater focus on quality management and on regulatory and compliance based things, that's great. If you spin it and say we want to do Scrum, but we also want to introduce it in a large scale environment, so we're going to introduce scaled Agile or disciplined Agile delivery or Scrum at scale or lean or large enterprise scale Scrum. It doesn't matter how you do it. The point I'm trying to make is I don't think that Scrum has gone anywhere or that it's going anywhere anytime soon. But here's what I do believe. I do believe that the complexion of Scrum, not complexity, complexion of how it's being applied is changing. It's changing every single day. And I think that's important for us to recognize that, to discuss what we're going to do, and to discuss how AI is going to shift the paradigm and how getting people away from time-based estimations and finally getting people to focus on Fibonacci sequencing and relative complexity-based estimation, and how it's going to help us forecast better and save companies money, and how we're going to be able to more quickly adapt and respond to the needs of end consumers. There's so many wonderful, amazing things that Agile and Scrum do that people tend not to focus on, and there are other things that people are, live or die by the sword for that aren't the most important things. So in summary, is Scrum dead? No. But is the way that we're applying Scrum dead? Maybe. I think it's time for us to really refocus our attention and ask the questions. How well do we know our targeted personas? And if we don't, we need to break it down and figure out who our targeted personas are. How well are we engaged with our stakeholders and our key stakeholders? And do we know the North Star strategy for the organization? How well are we applying the things that we have learned, and what pieces of the Agile framework apply very easily, and which pieces have been a little bit more of a struggle for us? I don't want to see or hear anybody doing Agile in the name of Agile and not for any other purpose. We really need to zoom in and say, okay, if we're doing Agile, what are we trying to solve? What are we trying to do? What are we trying to highlight? What are we trying to make better? And I think that if we just regain some of those fundamental components, some of the fundamental pieces, that when we get to deliver and we get to release, that we understand the importance of having an MVP, and we understand how working together as teams is going to help us get better results faster, and how it's going to yield a faster time to market, and how it's going to yield higher quality. I think if you focus on all those things, it's really going to make Agile better. It's going to make your organization better. And if applied correctly, it will give people back their will to live, and you'll see success. You'll see market success. And I think it's just a matter of time before people pull that trigger and say, okay, I need to know what's next. And the truth is, what's next is already here. It's just a matter of us completing our round of understanding and integrating the new knowledge that we learn into the current framework that we call Agile. So that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a comment, question, or suggestion for an episode, reach out to us. Learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.